Mhm. Mhm. You ready to admit people?
Here we go.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Piano Technician Radio Hour. Good to see you all today. We got 27 coming on right now. Great. Anybody new? I recognize some of you from the weeks past. I don't know some of you. Always exciting to meet new people and learn where they're from. This is a small enough community that, like, eventually we kind of know at least of each other, but there's always some new people to meet. So welcome, everyone. All right. Let's get started today. Welcome to the Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather every Saturday to meet and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. We talk to anyone and everyone worth talking to, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, the piano technicians, all with the goal of becoming better at our craft, helping one another, and also creating an ever more musical world. This radio hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclass, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. Find out more at pianotechnicianmasterclass.com. Today, we have an old friend of mine, really, Micah. He was my roommate in college. At North Bennett. We both kind of checked into the same place in East Boston on the same day, and we found out that we were both going to be in the same program in the first year. So kind of a happy accident, and we kind of worked together as a team. There was some helpful competition back and forth, I think, and but Micah is doing some really cool things out on the West Coast. A quick little background here is he went at North Bennett for both years, from 2013 to 15. He did the Interlochen and the Tango and Music Festivals over the summer. And in the fall of 2015, he became the sole piano technician at Washington State University. And he was there for 4 years. So welcome, Micah. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to start off with North Bennett because you did the second year and I didn't. Once you got out and began like doing college work and stuff, what was a skill that you really kind of had to still do more learning on and about?
After leaving the second year?
Yeah.
I think the major one is learning to interact with both clients and I guess faculty in a college or university setting. We talk about it in school and do a handful of appointments through the second year around Boston, but had very little hands-on kind of experience with that part of running a business or just working professionally.
Okay.
So that's probably one of the more challenging things to learn after school.
Yeah. And actually, let's go back because you, while in high school, decided that you wanted to be a piano tech. And so you just went right from high school to North Bennett, right?
Yeah. So I grew up homeschooled, finished at 16, went to North Bennett when I was 17, just because a few years prior, I kind of decided I wanted to work on pianos rather than perform or teach with piano.
So if my math checks out, then you got the Washington job at 19. Is that right?
Yeah, I was 19.
What was that like?
Scary, not gonna lie. It was intimidating. Most of my colleagues were 40, 50, 60 tenured professors, and most of the students were my age. But it was a great learning experience and a really supportive kind of staff there.
That's good.
So yeah, it was a good experience.
You had any pushback or anything like, because the college stuff is kind of intimidating at first.
Yeah, there was a very small amount of pushback. Most people were super supportive and welcoming. I think more than anything, it was a bit of confusion from the students when I came in. Just someone knocks on the door, sticks their head in, and asks them to take their water bottle off the piano. It just looks like another student, not the piano technician. And there was a handful of faculty that were a little difficult, but I think that's always the case in a university. You have a lot of strong personalities, and there's always a few that maybe are a little more challenging to work with. And I don't really think it was an age thing.
What was it like working at Interlochen?
It was a good experience. It was a crash course in tuning for sure. Coming off of the first year, then going straight to Interlochen. I got off a red-eye flight, showed up, and 30 minutes later, I was tuning pianos out in the forest in a shack. So it was at the time it was Jessica Moss was the piano technician. I don't think she's there anymore, and it was tuning 5 uprights a day, just kind of cranking them out. It was mostly what we did was tuning and basic maintenance,
Which is a lot. I mean, because like you had only been tuning for a year then with your first year, like 5 a day, that's ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we started about 3, and I remember
Yeah.
being exhausted the first couple of weeks. But then you settle into it, and it's all Kawhi uprights, pretty much Kawhi in Boston,
And these were new pianos too, for the most part, weren't they?
new or lightly used, yeah, within 3 years or so.
But kept in a shed, so I'm sure the pitch was kind of all over the place.
Oh yeah, it was Michigan in the summer. It was hot, it was humid, it was raining all the time, mosquitoes everywhere. Pitch was all over the place for sure. And we had about 300 pianos, and
Wow.
I believe there was 4 of us. There's me and a classmate. No, there's 5 of us. Me and a classmate, 2 more experienced gals, and then Jessica. So between the 5 of us, we took care of 300 for the summer.
Now compare that with Tanglewood.
I definitely enjoyed Tanglewood more. Part of that, I think, was just being more comfortable, kind of growing into the role a little bit better. And I was put in charge not of performance spaces there, which is what Steve Carver and Corey were taking care of, but rather like masterclass pianos or green rooms, backstage kind of stuff was what I did. So I got to work closer with artists, get some more kind of soft concert experience, and it was less grinding out tunings every day, which was still a part of it, and more in-depth high-level voicing, regulation, that kind of thing. I was at a point where I could do 4 pianos before lunch and then focus on other stuff after lunch, kind of thing.
Oh, cool. You had a story, I think you told me once, about a ceiling fan that remember that one?
Yeah. So I was in one of my masterclass rooms. I had 2 Steinway Bs, and it was just a wooden shed with no insulation, and windows and ceiling fans because it got a little hot in Western Mass in the summer, a little hot and humid. And I had 3 faculty members from the totally blanking on the name, the big opera house on the East Coast. Totally blanking on it. Anyway, they were there, Metropolitan Opera. They were 3 faculty members doing a class with a bunch of vocalists and pianists, and I worked all day, late into the night, regulating voicing, prepping these pianos for this class. And I get a call at about 6 p.m. saying they were pissed about the pianos. So I run back after a long day of work, run in there, and apparently they had the ceiling fans running because it was hot. And as I'm sure we all know, ceiling fans create weird oscillations in the air, which grabs the sound waves and just makes everything sound wrong. So it's impossible to tune with a fan above my head. And that's what they were hearing. They thought the pianos were out of tune, but it was the ceiling fan spinning. So me, being 19 and freaked out, didn't think to say, I'll take care of it, have them step out for 10 minutes, turn off the fan and bring them back in. Instead, I just turned off the fan and asked them to play the piano and see how it sounded. And it sounded a lot better, and they knew it, but one of the gentlemen wasn't able to admit that. So I had to make a good show of it and retune both pianos that night before their next class at like 9 o'clock that night. So it was a good lesson in tact.
Yeah. Tact is something that we don't talk enough about because we have to have these hard conversations or these awkward conversations. With people with very large egos or people with a lot of family history with the instrument or something. And I think it's hard for anybody, but especially when you're 19, 20, and just don't have that life experience behind you. It's tough. It sounds like you handled it well, uh, regardless. Then, so you were at the school for 4 years after that, then, right?
Mhm.
And you had two Faziolis on stage. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, so
one?
we were the first school in the country to get the Fazioli 301.
Oh,
I think
okay.
in 2001 is when they got that, which is a 10-foot one grand piano with 4 pedals. And it
What does
was
the
in a
fourth one do?
it's sort of like the left pedal on an upright. It brings the hammer shanks closer to the strings. Um, and on a grand, it works a little bit better because the action follows the hammer, so you don't have a huge amount of lost motion. So the keys all just kind of go to half depth when you use the pedal. We didn't use it on campus. We ordered a 3-pedal lyre and just replaced it because the 4th pedal was freaking out some guest artists that had never seen it before.
Does the fourth pedal, does it lift a back of the keys up then? Is that how that works?
No, it's an oblong aluminum rail wrapped in felt underneath the hammer shanks. And when you press down the pedal, it rotates up 90 degrees and it lifts all the hammer shanks.
And then the keys just follow naturally.
Yeah, so the whip-ins, the repetitions follow the hammer knuckles up, and then the keys follow them up, assuming there's front weight. But we really never used it. I had the lyre in the shop for 4 years, and we just used a 3-pedal lyre we replaced it with.
Interesting. I wonder what the let-off regulation would have to be, or like a specific spec that'd have to be at, or
I'm actually not sure because we didn't
Huh.
really use it very much. The technician prior to me had replaced it, and the faculty didn't want it back on the piano. So it was
Okay.
more of an interesting thing I knew about, but never really had a chance to fuss with. But that piano was in a 180-seat concert hall.
Oh, wow.
Extreme overkill, but our director back in 2001 fell in love with the piano and had to have it.
Wow.
So we crammed it in that hall, and it was a lot of piano. I spent 4 years trying to voice it down.
That's always so hard when you have this huge instrument that can do so much and they put it like in a bathroom, It's like, no, like put it anywhere else.
Yeah, and we also had the second Fazioli. We had a 278, which is the traditional 9-foot concert grand, in our recording studio, which is just a gorgeous piano, probably my favorite piano I've ever worked on. And that
Wow.
was just super, super nice.
And you did some rebuilding while you were there too? They have a shop on campus?
Yep. So we had an inventory of about 83, 84 pianos, and they were rough. Just kind of a little bit neglected, and at most hammer filings were done, a few sets of new hammers here and there. So I rebuilt, I think, 5 or 6 pianos in my 4 years there, up to restringing and recapping bridges. I never redid soundboards in that space because I had a little like 12 by 12 foot shop. But yeah, so it was semi-full rebuilding, not quite.
Okay.
Lots of actions.
Did you have to ask like permission to do some of the action work? Because I found that with some college jobs, like you walk in and you see that like it needs to be regulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the previous technician said it was perfect and the faculty then believe the last guy. I don't necessarily believe, right, the new guy that's coming in, he's saying, I want to restring your piano and take it for 3 months.
Yeah, for me, for faculty instruments, I had to do that over breaks. So I would rebuild an action over spring break, just put on new hammers basically, or redo a whole piano over the summer. But I would never do it during the school year because we didn't have enough inventory to be rotating out pianos for faculty. We had a very small budget. The music department was chronically underfunded there. I had like a $5,000 budget for the year.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, I had a lot of parts in inventory the prior tech had gotten when they had a budget surplus like 10 years before. So I had a dozen sets of hammers, 6 sets of repetitions, a dozen sets of shanks. So I made the most of that. But by and large, they were really good about letting me do whatever I felt like I needed to do as long as I communicated. So I just told them, I want to do this. They said, great, do it. Just, don't interfere with classes or anything.
Very cool. And then you worked for the Steinway dealer too, up there, didn't you? At this point, or was that later?
So I worked for the Boston Steinway dealer, Steinert's, during my second year of school. And then I was also a contractor for the Spokane Steinway dealership.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you went out to the factory, right, to do their regulation class?
Yes, that was interesting. It was actually WSU had a partnership with Steinway Spokane, which is about 90 minutes north of us. and they had given us a few concert instruments kind of on loan, like they do with schools. And we're really trying to get us to turn into an all Steinway school. Obviously, we didn't have the budget, and I didn't want to support an all Steinway school. I personally don't like that for a university. I like diversity available to the students. So they're kind of pushing towards that, and the whole fact that they pushed back a little bit. But as part of this, trying to better the relationship, the president or the owner of the Steinway store was trying to support the technician at WCU, the gentleman prior to me, and then me. So they actually funded both of us to go to Steinway through WSU and put us up for a week in New York. And I did the regulation program. I was going to do the voicing program and never got around to it.
What was that like?
It was great.
Yeah.
So we had, in school, we had been to the factory a couple times,
Mhm.
And then more in the second year. We worked with Kent Webb. I'm not sure. I think he's still there. But great guy, really, really kind, and is very, very good at what he does. So we spent probably 50 hours with him that week, just major crash course. We each got a piano off the floor that was due for its floor regulation. And we went through and every single step broke it down as Steinway teaches it formally, and then a bunch of Kent's personal insight into things he preferred to do a little differently. And I think that's really where regulation clicked for me.
Okay.
I understood it, but just the level that we got into it was more than I had anywhere else. And most of those techniques apply to any piano, not just Steinway.
Okay. Very interesting. What was maybe one operation or a technique that you took away from there? Like a way to do dampers or way to adjust something?
Yeah, he has an interesting way of doing let off. So let off in grands is always do you hold a jig for every note? Do you use magnets that never really stick to the strings? Are you using a mirror? How badly are you blowing your back out every time you do it? It's a constant struggle, right? So he took a damper wire, which was 1.9 millimeters, I think, so functionally 2 millimeters, and bent it. I should have grabbed my toolkit, but he bent it into a right angle and then used a damper head collet, like you use for keeping spinet stickers contained, right? He used one of those as a stop, so he could use it to set hammer strike and other things like a movable gauge. And then he used a foam earplug that he threaded up below the collet, and that was to keep him from dropping it into the action. And also to let him set it in between trichords or 8 strings while going up the action and setting let off. So instead of setting your tool down every time, you just leave it where it belongs and then move it to the next note real quick. But what made it more unique was he would turn up all the let off to block, just real quick, just turn everything up, a turn. And then he would put his gauge in, block it to the string with a hammer, and then just using really gentle touch, turn the let off until the gauge falls.
Okay.
And for him, that worked really well. For me, I'm a bit heavy-handed to do that, I think. I never quite dialed it in, but I used kind of elements of that, and it was just a unique way to think about it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'll have to build one of those now.
Yeah, I can send you a picture. It's super simple.
Great.
But my kit is definitely not near me right now. So
let's talk about tools. I'm a tool guy. I buy way too many tools.
I know.
And you also do a lot of woodworking right now. Talk about tools, because I feel like sometimes we as technicians, either we just buy them all or we don't buy them ever. I showed someone the other day that had been tuning for 30 years what a Paps mute was, and it just changed their whole way of tuning. So what's maybe one or two tools that you think more tuners should have, at least with them, like in the shop, at least, maybe not like in the car necessarily, but
yeah, that's a good question.
You can think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of my favorite tools anyway, kind of related, is a wooden stick that's been painted black on the face and one edge. It's about 3/8 of an inch wide by 3/4 of an inch tall and about 14 inches long. This was inspired by Jonathan Tetzloff from Steinert's in Boston. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but good technician. And he uses that as a hammer level guide when you're setting hammer level on a grand.
Oh, sure.
You set it on the flanges and you can shim up one side with balance rail punchings.
Oh, okay.
Get down low, side along. So instead of using that jig we had in school and a bunch of older technicians use where it's like hinged in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
you just do that.